Casting a younger version of a character for flashbacks is often a challenging endeavor, but Josh Lucas is doing such a fantastic job as the young John Dutton that I'm starting to think he should get his own prequel series. Everything from his gestures to the inflection of his voice is as close to Kevin Costner's portrayal as it can get, so I keep getting impressed. Hi there mate, how's it going? It's Benja here, and this is a breakdown and review of Yellowstone Season 5 Episode 3 titled Tall Drink of Water. The wolf storyline continues in episode 3 with a flashback as we go back to the time when wolves were introduced or reintroduced to the national park, with residents around the park being given assurances that the canines won't bother them. That turns out to be a lie, and ranchers from all around Montana voiced their frustrations in a council meeting. John has first-hand knowledge that the ranchers are right because some of his cattle has recently been killed by wolves, and he implies to another council member that if Fish and Wildlife officers don't come to the ranch before the weekend, he'll have to take matters into his own hands. The council member's name is Keith. He was apparently the biggest advocate for reintroducing the wolves to the park, and in my opinion he is the embodiment of an embarrassing mindset that is still prevalent today, which thinks that nature can be ruled over in its entirety. He had the audacity to think that they could limit the wolves to the boundaries of the park. Wolves had other ideas. This problem has come up again in the present with Ryan and Colby killing some wolves from the park. They had permits, but those don't cover animals from the park. And because one of the collars they chucked into the river got stuck, 2 Fish and Wildlife officers take notice and they come asking questions, saying they would like to go over the wolf's path on the ranch. Just before this, Rip was having a heart-to-heart moment with Carter as he was feeding a calf, and he was wondering what would happen to it when it grew up. Rip goes, quote, "Orphans don't get shipped off around here, Carter, in case you haven't noticed," end quote. I think that's my favorite quote of the episode. It is a beautifully written sentence because of how meaningful it is for both characters, since they're both orphans. Back to the Fish and Wildlife agents, they take Rip with them to the spot where the wolves were killed, though obviously they don't know that. The wolves are most likely buried here, but the ranch hands have smartly been plowing the field, which provides cover for the ranch. GPS shows that the wolves went up the mountains next. We know that was Rip, Colby and Ryan traveling like wolves with the trackers, which they then tossed away. Rip tells them that going up the mountains is dangerous even for good cowboys, and neither agent seems like a good cowboy, so they decide to conduct the rest of the search from a chopper. In theory, that should be that, because they can't come up with any evidence from a helicopter, so all they have is the collar in the river. Rip has already told them it must have been the work of poachers, and that is a reasonable defense when the agents don't have any other evidence. In the meantime, Beth catches John deep in his thoughts on the porch. He's probably thinking about the memory with Keith and the wolves, because Rip told him about the new wolf trouble in episode 2. John doesn't know that the animals were from the park, but yeah, it's on his mind. He doesn't want to talk to Beth about that, so instead he brings up her mother, Evelyn. John is sad that Beth never got the chance to really get to know Evelyn, but this is obviously a touchy subject for Beth with the way Evelyn treated her and raised her like a man so that she would be prepared for the real world. That is one of the main reasons Beth is the way she is. So she advises her father to go out there and make new memories with someone new, and once she gets to her car, she can't hold back her tears. Beth is on her way to the Schwartz and Meyer offices in Salt Lake City, and I think we need some background information before we move on. This is the investment bank Beth used to work for, and together with the Yellowstone Ranch, they bought a lot of land around the ranch in order to put it into a conservation easement program, which would make the bank a lot of money, and it would preserve the ranch's integrity. However, the company's owner, Bob Schwartz, was approached by Market Equities, and he betrayed Beth by letting Market Equities take over. This was a big problem because of all the land around the ranch, but Beth knew she was wanted by Market Equities, so she agreed to work for them in exchange for a controlling interest in Schwartz and Meyer, which meant that she was able to get back at Bob Schwartz. For that controlling interest, she was willing to help Market Equities build their dream city in Montana, but on the condition that they wouldn't touch the Yellowstone Ranch. Caroline agreed at first, only to go back on her word and still include the ranch in their plans. Beth then tried to undermine the airport project by orchestrating a clash between protesters and law enforcement just when the media was paying attention, at which point Caroline fired Beth. Now, Beth still owns a controlling interest in Schwartz & Meyer, but market equities will come after her for violating their non-disclosure agreement. After all, she used insider knowledge to protect her family and the ranch. So Beth would like to sell the company before the lawsuit can go through. And luckily, she knows Robert Baldus, the CEO of Burson International, who are the biggest competitors of market equities. The only thing Beth wants in exchange for the sale of Schwartz & Meyer, which is worth billions of dollars, is the land around the Yellowstone Ranch, which is quote-unquote only worth about $300 million. So Burson International gets to screw over market equities loses tens of billions of dollars in potential revenue, and Burson adds an impressive investments bank to their portfolio, all for pennies on the dollar. And Beth protects the ranch by selling off something that she would lose in a lawsuit anyway. After the deal is signed, Beth immediately puts the land into the easement program, and when the deal hits the news, the market equities board recalls Caroline to New York, and they want to drop all lawsuits because they know it's an unwinnable battle. Caroline knows it too, but she's gonna go down swinging. She's not thinking about the company or the airport. No, all she wants is for the Dutton family to be destroyed at all costs. Caroline instructs Ellis to turn Sarah loose, and she leaves Montana. Earlier in the day, Sarah and Ellis met with Jamie, and Sarah played the Attorney General like a fiddle. She got Ellis to pretend as though he was desperate and outraged, which made Jamie feel superior, as though he had the upper hand. And after Ellis left the room, Sarah expressed how impressed she was by Jamie, and she claimed that all she wanted now was a soft landing. They then agreed to have dinner, and I'm positive that Sarah is going to keep using Jamie's ego and low self-esteem against him. I wonder if he's ever going to wisen up. Elsewhere, Beth decides to take all the ranch hands to a bar in Bozeman for Lloyd's 58th birthday, despite Rip's insisting that this is a bad idea. And as always, Rip turns out to be right. A woman flirts with him at the bar, calls him a tall drink of water, and he says he's married, but she doesn't take no for an answer. When she learns that Beth is Rip's wife, she walks over to Beth, and as soon as I saw that Beth had a bottle in her hand, I knew she was gonna smash it in that stranger's head. After all, Beth is the most predictably unpredictable character around. But this time around, she has taken it a little too far, which is what Sheriff Ramsey explains to Rip as he officially arrests her. We met this new sheriff toward the end of last season after Sheriff Haskell passed away, and Ramsey made it clear to John that he wasn't like Haskell, and he proves it in this situation. He shows that he's a straight shooter, but we'll see what he does when the governor gets involved. Talking of the governor, he's got some official business to deal with, because Kayce steps down as the livestock commissioner, and John will need to find someone new to replace him. Kayce saw in his vision during his sweat ceremony that he had to choose his path, and one of those paths involves his family. He can't have them and be the livestock commissioner, and he chooses to prioritize his family. It is difficult to imagine what he'll do next, but Mo recommends talking to Jamie about becoming a state investigator, overseeing tribal land. Apparently they haven't had that kind of help in a long while, so it would be good for the res, and spending most of his time on the res would be a lot more ideal for Kayce and his family. As for the funeral, Mo and Rainwater advised Kayce and Monica to make it a private event because a traditional service isn't for anybody but the deceased. The only purpose is to make them pass on to the next world. Kayce talks to his father about it and John is understanding, so they go to pick a spot for the grave. Afterward, Angela Blue Thunder makes it clear to Rainwater that she is coming after his seat because he is still enforcing the slave rules. Angela wants to actually change things and not be content with the current rules, and this reminds me of the first time she appeared on the show when Mo warned Rainwater, telling him to watch out for her, and here she is. As for my thoughts on this episode, I think Rainwater has been an underused character for the last 2 seasons, so I'm glad that he's getting some more screen time. The way Beth defeated market equities, at least for now, was well thought out, and if the business side of this ordeal is completely done, I would be okay with this conclusion. But one thing is for sure, the personal side of the market equity storyline isn't over, because Sarah, who I'm liking a lot, could wreak havoc on the family by using Jamie, so I like that development as well. It was refreshing to see Beth actually get into trouble for once. Even if she gets released from jail and doesn't get charged, there is at least the potential of her facing some repercussions for her actions. You can't just go around smashing bottles into people's heads. I mean, something has to be done about that. And finally, I gotta say that Kayce as a state investigator sounds good, and I hope that that idea actually materializes. We would have John as the governor, Jamie as the attorney general, Beth on the business side, Rip running the ranch, and Kayce doing some investigating and detecting. That is a cocktail of awesome subjects that really shouldn't work together, but I suppose only Yellowstone can pull it off. Well, what did you think about episode 3? Leave your comments down below, like this video if you've enjoyed this breakdown, and subscribe for more movie reviews and TV show breakdowns. That is it for now, take care and see you in the next video.